Meeting called to order. Today is Tuesday, May 31st. It is now 6:30 PM. Town Council meeting in Town Council Chambers, 1170 Main Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island. Where is Brian?
I just texted him.
Dear Lord, we please ask your oversight over the great citizens of the United States, and in particular, the great citizens of West Warwick. We ask that you please watch over this council and help us make informed decisions, the right decisions, and also with a little bit of compassion. Amen. Andrew, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Veterans Exemption Resolution, whereas the town council resolves to support and amend to the Rhode Island General Law 44-3-4, wherein the current exemption for veterans shall be amended from $170 to an assessed exemption amount of up to $10,000.
I'll move the resolution. Second.
Moving second, discussion.
You want to read that again?
Yeah, up to 10,000, that ain't right.
It doesn't say assessed value, it says, read it
To an assessed exemption amount. It says assessed exemption
Yes.
amount.
It did say exempt.
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, what this does is this, we put a letter into our legislators, actually Jared Nunes, to do this same exact thing for the seniors of West Warwick. Councilman Giroux was very vocal during this budget season about doing more for the seniors, and we also brought up doing more for the veterans of West Warwick. This doesn't say that it's up to 10,000, so this can actually, the council and during budget times can set this rate up to 10,000. So if we did 10,000 right now, it'd be a $252.80 credit to your tax, off your tax bill. Because it's 10,000 off, so that's what it equates to right now. Same thing with the seniors, but again, this isn't this has to go to legislation. They have to get it passed and brought through us.
Rose had a problem, I just bumped into her at a wake, that she can't send, she don't know, the tax bills have to go out, the printer needs 2 weeks. All right, well,
There's two ways they
We knew
handle
there
it.
was an issue with that.
One would be putting it on the tax bill, which obviously there's not gonna be enough time. But the other way to handle it is, of course, dependent on when the General Assembly acts, is that the abatement of the tax can be done into the future. So they're not gonna lose it, credit or an abatement. So one way or the other, they're gonna get the higher exemption.
Yeah, and I'd like to know, what is the final drop dead deadline to get it printed? And if it's 2 weeks from now,
It can't be 2 weeks from now, because we normally send out the tax bills in the middle of June. And if we delay on that, and the printer needs 2 weeks to get everything processed, normally we send them in a week ago. So we're already behind a little bit. So we need to get them printed. We need to send them tomorrow at the very latest. And then, because they have to get approved by the legislature and then come back to you
To ratify.
for final ratification of the exemptions that you're going to get for this year. So there's no way we're going to be able to get the back of that.
But once everything's done administratively, notice will be sent to those people that would be eligible for the exemption. So they'll be notified one way or the other that they're gonna get a different amount taken off their bill this year.
good.
And just to be clear, for anyone watching at home, I think the intent of the council is to deal with the elderly exemption this year,
Yes.
the veterans exemption next year, but while we're going through the process of changing the legislation, we'll do them both now. They're both enabling, that'll give the council the authority to do this next year without going back to the legislature. And that's
so
the
who's
intent.
gonna get it first, the elderly?
The elderly.
Okay? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too. That was my
Of course, that's
first
up to
concern.
council vote, but that was the discussion that
Right.
took place.
Yeah.
For the record, Councilman Tucker has arrived. Any other questions? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
A resolution to the General Assembly requesting authorization for the town of West Warwick to enact tax stabilization for properties located within the Arctic Village redevelopment district, sponsored by Town Council.
I'll move the resolution.
Moving second, discussion.
Now, this, once we vote on this tonight, it enacts it?
No.
All you're doing is sending a resolution to the General Assembly, asking them to produce enabling legislation, which is attached, which would be a 44-3-9.9, and subject to any revisions that they may make, it'll be sent back to the town council for final ratification.
Mark, is this the one you sent us an email this morning? It looks a little different. It's a new one.
There were two versions that were forwarded. One was last Thursday, one was today.
Which one was published, Mark, for this meeting?
The one from last Thursday was the one that was posted.
But
We'll have to amend it.
it's been reduced down from all the stuff all the content of the resolution as it relates to the bill is still intact. The only thing that was changed that I can see is that there are less amendments. There's only down to 3 amendments, page 1, line 10, page 1, line 11, page 3, lines 5 and 6. However, it clearly indicates that those are a rough draft, subject to review by both the Senate and the House committees and/or sub-As that they may introduce. So it's kind of a work in progress, so it can be amended because it is a rough draft. It's really not the finalized document.
And I don't question that it can't be amended. What I question is when you post something, right, now we have to approve what was posted and then amend.
Well,
What was-
in most
what was
cases, you're
approved.
absolutely right, but because you've got a rough draft that is basically, these 3 pages are now have taken, I guess, the original 9-page bill.
Yeah, why is it so complicated?
I think one of the legislators.
the main
made it-
one.
Made it a little more complicated than what
A
it
little
should be.
more. I mean, you know, you read and you gotta be a lawyer to interpret it.
There's nothing wrong with being a lawyer.
Nothing's.
Thanks, Mark.
Hold on a second, wait a minute, let me just hit my watch. All right, but the point is, I think Mark Carullo can explain the differences between the 9-page document that you had and the 3-page document that's before you. But the appropriate amendment can be made. But again, this resolution, because of the format, it's still very much in a rough draft form, and there's going to be an amended required anyway that, again, includes the fact that this town council is going to have to ratify whatever the General Assembly sends back.
Mr. Council President, members of the council, basically what you have before you are 2 versions of the same type of legislation. And what the legislation is asking is to authorize the town council to vote in a tax stabilization agreement for properties located in Arctic. The first version that you received last Thursday is a more prescriptive version, and the bulk of that document is a description of Arctic in a meets and bounds type that's point-by-point description of the area. The second version that you received earlier today, which authorizes the same type of tax stabilization agreement, is a more generalized and basic version. It eliminates the very prescriptive language that was being presented by the legislature to the town council, requiring them to basically lock in assessed rates over 12 years and then phase in new rates over the next 10 years. That's really the difference in the legislation. We had initially requested simply to give the town council authorization to enter into these agreements for a 20-year term. Up to 20 years, yes. And somehow that got lost in translation and a more complicated document came back. There have since been discussions with, people that would be representing us, our legislators, and they've agreed to go with a more generalized version. So basically what this is, the first version would dictate to the town council those tax agreements that they could enter into. The second version gives that gives that opportunity to the town council to determine what types of agreements they would enter into. That's the main difference.
And I do understand that, right? The only thing I'm questioning is what are we voting on tonight? And again, when we post something, we have restrictions, we have to post it 48 hours in advance. We put something on the internet that people can look at, right? And now we're here tonight, and we're saying, oh, forget about that one, let's put this one in.
Well-
You're gonna amend
Okay.
to accept this current version, but you're not changing what was produced to the public as far as what's happening here tonight regarding the Tax Stabilization Act. Most, if not all, of the pages that Mark was
As long as
referring
we
to.
amend it, I mean,
Yeah, so the action
we're
would
not
be,
voting on the second one, we're voting on the first,
No.
and then we're going,
you're
gonna vote as amended.
you can't just
You'd-
last minute through.
I'll leave it to your solicitor, but basically, you'd make a motion, vote to amend the first document to be the second document, more or less.
So you're voting on an amended document, but the amended document is not in its final completed draft.
So what do we do?
The bottom line is, here's the problem. You have no
read it?
control over what's going to happen in the General Assembly. It's enabling legislation. Here's a format, here's an outline of what the council wants. It's in more of a precise
So
language,
why are we here?
So what are we saying?
because you need to get this up to
To
the next
them.
level. If you don't pass this resolution, nothing gets to the General Assembly. They won't entertain any type of enabling legislation.
They're done in 3 weeks.
Well, I know that, and I want to get it done, I'm not trying to block anything, I just want to get it done correctly.
Yeah.
All right, I don't want to be accused of late-night meetings that we change things, you know.
No, but again,
both
See,
I
this-
will say
this is
one
a
of the
draft,
reasons,
So what
No,
are
no,
we
but
saying
both-
here, we want
guys,
something like this?
Both documents indicate clearly that this is a rough draft, okay?
Vote on a draft.
Council has amended resolutions for
I know, yeah. But he's saying the second one is a draft.
They're both drafts.
they're both.
This is a draft too.
It's not up to, you can't dictate what the final.
This clearly states that this is a rough draft.
This is something for them to go behind.
Okay, that's what I just said, so give us something like this.
Well, then, I gotta make an amendment to the first.
All you gotta do, hold on, before we move on to the amendment, one of the reasons, after Fred and I were talking about this, the very first day when we talked about calling this meeting, Fred brought something up to me, because I didn't have a chance to read this entire document, and he brought something that was very crucial, which would have put a tax freeze on the entire Arctic district, including the residential side and everything, for the next 20 years. That gives nobody an incentive to do anything, because they could just keep the same taxes on the property and don't worry about it for 20 years. And that was something that we didn't want. So yesterday, at yesterday's ceremony, we actually met up with Senator Satchel, and Rep. Morgan actually caught us leaving, and we were telling her what we actually wanted, because she was questioning us on it. And she had actually said she had meetings with individuals, the board, and she thought this is the way they wanted to go. And we just said we wanted something general that entitles us, something like Royal Mills or Lippert Mill, where we gave them an incentive to come and do the project. We don't want to jeopardize or put the town in a stranglehold by freezing taxes and going over,
Well, we don't know the impact, there's no fiscal note, so.
well, right now, if we go with this second side of it, the amended side of it, there's no fiscal note attached to it, because we didn't enable anything. But if we go by the first one, we then now say we're willing to give Arctic a tax freeze for the entire 20 years.
The bottom line is the second version allows the council to have complete control over what's going to happen into the future. What you're doing is asking the General Assembly to give you enabling legislation to do that. The first draft, the way I read it, basically allowed the General Assembly to dictate what was going to happen based upon what was in this document.
No, it gives us more flexibility.
This gives you all the
Yeah,
power and the authority in the world. It is amended, but again, everything in the first documents that I received clearly indicate rough draft, both not only of the resolution, but rough draft of the proposed legislation, as does this. So what you would be moving on tonight is the amended draft of the resolution. And this is draft because you don't know what they're gonna do to it. And if history can be of any help, when we had the med zone legislation back 10 or 12 years ago, Bob, they did the same thing. The council presented a draft, it was worked on, council and manager testified before both the House and Judiciary Committees, got something that everyone liked, and that's how it was passed. then it doesn't have to come back here and be rechanged. All it has to be is re-ratified.
One of the issues I have is page 5, item D, line 15, which talks about delinquent taxes. They give a 6-month window for delinquent taxes to people we're giving tax breaks to.
The page 5 doesn't exist anymore, Brian.
All right.
It's just, all that
You
goes
prepared all
down
that?
to this.
All right, I just barely breezed
Well,
through
that's
that
why
new
the old
document.
draft.
We
I don't
saved you a
think
lot of
worked-
reading.
I don't think
Okay.
worked for anyone.
All right.
In the newer draft, again, based upon the development of Arctic and how it's going to work, the council is then going to be able to, I would think, look at this by a case-by-case study, Mr. Town Manager?
And that's the idea, so you do the fiscal notes for each development as it comes
It's
forward.
not, it's not a
When
uniform.
I say fiscal note, like, a lot of towns have done this before, the state has done it before, and we've done it
hate
before
this.
successfully, and not so
I don't like
successful.
this.
And there's gotta be some type of fiscal work through to understand when it's a success and when it's not a success, and we cut our losses, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I
Some
think
type of
You can
escape
only do that
clause.
when you
the
don't
way,
develop.
the way it's going to work is the development would come before the town, explain to the council what they're going to do, what they're envisioning, what they're looking for as far as a tax break. The council will then negotiate, determine what it is, but if 4 different developers come in, what you negotiate with number 1 may not be the same as number 2, 3, and 4, because their projects might be different.
I was just gonna
But that,
say-
this legislation allows you guys to control that completely.
And I used this for an example yesterday, speaking to Fred. You know, CVS is coming in, wants to put a building up with a small restaurant or something on the side of it. I want to put Friendly Cab back up. Now, I'm going to bring Friendly Cab to West Warwick, which will be a little cab stand, which is probably a 20 by 20 building. You're not going to give me the 20-year, you might not give me a 20-year break, you might give me a 5-year, based upon the size and the expense of my project. But CVS or, let's say, a Walmart comes in and they want to take up 2 whole blocks, and, you know, and it's a good project for the town, you might want to give them a different incentive.
So, the amended version, Bob, does this dilute any of the intent that you want?
Hear your question fully.
All right, so the second version that we received yesterday in the email, does this in any way dilute your original, or the committee's, or the board, what is it, a board? Committee? The agency's intent? Is it diluting it at all? Is it?
No, it's
Are you
not.
satisfied with?
Actually, it's benefiting the whole process. We've gone through about 8 different drafts. It's been a long time coming between the agency, Mr. Presley, Ms. Carullo, and some of your input. We think this is a perfect fit for Arctic. We think it'll be the beginning for making Arctic vibrant again.
Okay.
On top of that, we still have the med zone sitting there, which will benefit this zone. I mean, this is such a great timing for this. We just pray that the General Assembly will go along with this. I see no flaws in this. It's actually covering a little better than we expected. I have high hopes that this thing will be a success.
Moving it already. Boy,
We'll fix it with the legislation. But, no, I think this is fine. We've covered just about everything that we could.
Good.
And I'm sure we're going to benefit from it.
Stan, you want to say anything? You all set?
No, I was just, maybe I'll move forward. I thought, and you said differently.
Stan, I'm not that before, so.
My thinking, and it's been said differently here this evening, is like, whatever, once we engage on one developer, one project, whatever was given to that one person would set the tone for all of them, but you're saying differently.
They're all different.
There's
They're all
different values to them, though, to
They
the town.
invest a different amount.
Yeah.
You can't do
Skin
that.
in the game, it should be proportional, if their break should be proportional to what they put in.
If I put $5 million in, I should get a better break than Ed putting 100,000 in.
No, that's fine, that's a better way, that's a better scenario. I just was under the impression that once one thing goes down, we gotta live with it.
No, if we went with the.
That
first
alternative, that's the
project,
way the other one was.
Then, that's why we said, like, and I used that for an example yesterday, like I said, I wanna put Friendly Cat up, it's a $100,000 building, you know, 4 walls and a toilet.
Mhm.
And that's all. Now, CVS is putting up a giant store.
Understood, I'm fine with that. I think it's good. The biggest problem I had with the other one was locking everything and people not being able, just sitting on it. And we were trying to address that the other day, but this thing eliminates all that, so it's not an issue.
If I can add just one other thing, to set an example, let's say that there's a block and there's one owner holding out, and we've got a good firm that wants to come in. We're able to take that by eminent domain. We have to pay 150% for it, whatever it's assessed. However, I met with Centerville Bank, and if we did do that, they would back us on the purchasing of the property until such time the developer will pay back that money. Okay? Thank you.
You bet I did. With all my grandkids by my side. Grampy was the only one in the pool. I'd like to move the original
That's already been moved.
resolution.
So I moved it.
Oh, okay, good.
You move to amend, you're gonna move to amend.
We haven't voted on it, though, have we?
You don't vote.
You don't have
Move
to.
to amend, and then you
I move
vote
to
on
amend
the resolution
the resolution
and the accompanying 3-page rough draft.
and the accompanying 3-page rough draft.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor for the amendment?
Aye.
All right, now I need a motion to move.
Motion to move the amended resolution.
Second. Move in second. Any other discussion? Any public discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, started something great. Very good. Thank you. Now I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Any public comment?
Just social.
Ed seconded.
039.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
9774.
Ayes have it. Good night.
Fred. Fred.
I got it over here. I got them all numbered. I